Hey guys, my name is Hansol, and in this video I'll be bringing you my second Fire Mage PvP guide updated for patch 5.2 season 13. So ever since MoP came out, a lot of you guys have been asking for another lengthy and detailed guide, so today the day has come. I've taken my time to put out this guide so I could learn and master some of the art forms before I release this video, because I didn't want to misinform you guys on some of the important stuff. So before I get started, I just want to share my experience with you guys so you guys know that I'm not like talking out of my ass or anything. I am a Gladiator Fire Mage. I've been 2.4k in arenas and 2.6k in RBGs, and this was both last season. Also, many of you guys are probably wondering, or you guys have wondered already, why don't I play Frost? I personally don't find Frost very fun. I think it's dull and static, and you know, I prefer the Fire Mage gameplay. Frost and Fire is very different, so even if you're like a pro Frost Mage, you might find Fire a little weird. So yeah. In this video, I'll be covering overview of the spec, rotations, my build, gearing, and fire and PvP action. So let's get started. Some of the things that fire mages are known for is that they're very strong when it comes to quick bursts and frozen targets. So if set up correctly, you can bring down enemies in a matter of seconds and turn them to ash. Fire mages also excel at AoE CC with Dragon's Breath when the enemies are stacked up, or when you're engaging in large group fights such as in RBGs. If done correctly, we can also control a player for a very long time with multiple polymorphs, Deep Freeze, Combustion Stun, Frost Jaw, Blanket Silence, and Dragon's Breath. Some of the bad things about fire mages is that their burst is easily predictable as their damage comes from hot streak procs, which is a buff that enemy players can purge. Also, getting procs can be very challenging when versing a skilled team that controls you a lot. And fire mages also don't have a ranged slow or root, which can make it hard to reach enemies that are cutting you without having to waste a crucial ability like combustion and blink. Like using blink, for example, to reach enemies is inefficient because a team with a brain will just stun you after that or root you, and which will leave you stuck in the stun or forcing a trinket. But overall, I'd say that fire is more challenging to play than frost in PvP situations. Evidently, most high rated mages in the 3v3 ladder mostly play frost, and over 95% of the gladiator mages have played frost to gain high rating as well. Although if fire is played correctly, it can be very deadly and also very enjoyable to play. I mean, who doesn't like burning shit? To pump out damage as a fire mage, you need to first get a hot streak proc, which is an instant pyroblast. And since all of our burst damage comes from juicy pyroblast combos, it's pretty much crucial to get a hot streak proc before you deep freeze a target. In order to get a hot streak proc, you need to crit twice consecutively with a fire spell. And there's two different ways I'm going to be showing you guys how to get a hot streak proc, so here we go. The first method I'm going to be demonstrating to you on getting a hot streak is probably the most efficient way of getting a hot streak proc. So there's a spell called Infernal Blast, and what it does is it does a small amount of damage to the target, but it also spreads all dots excluding your bomb dots to nearby targets. So the most important part of this spell you should note is that it has a 100% crit chance when used, and it also has an 8-second cooldown. So if you use it once, wait 8 seconds, then use it again when it comes back up without casting another fire spell in between the 8-second interval, including spells like Scorch and Fireball, you should get a guaranteed Pyroblast proc. It's very important that you don't cast in between waiting for the cooldown, otherwise if you Scorch in between the 8 seconds and it doesn't crit, then your heating up will refresh and you'll have to restart the whole process all over again. The second method is what I like to call a shatter combo. Shatter combos are used when you want to get a quick pyroblast proc for hard swaps or swift pyros. There's an ability called Shatter which doubles your crit chance against frozen targets plus an additional 50%. So if you have 25% crit chance, that doubles by 2, which equals 50%, plus another 50%, and that leaves you with 100% crit chance on all frozen targets. So what you want to do is first Frost Nova the target, or you can alternatively use Frost Jaw or Ring of Frost, then quickly Scorch and Infernal Blast. The target is frozen, therefore both spells critting, which leads to a hot streak proc. So when you're playing a fire mage, make sure to use these two methods that I just showed you guys to get hot streak procs. because one of the biggest mistakes that I see most fire mages doing is that they're just spamming Scorch and praying for procs to come up, and then after that they just start complaining that fire is very RNG and they just don't like it. But in all honesty, they're just not playing it correctly. You should never be spamming Scorch and hoping for procs, because sometimes you're very unlucky and it won't happen. Alright, so now since you have your pyro proc, it's your bursting phase. So in order to burst, you're going to first want to put your dot on the target to apply the Pyromaniac debuff, which increases your fire damage onto the target by 10%. And then get your defreeze off with either Frost Nova, Frost Gel, or Ring of Frost. Then Pyroblast, Combustion, Pyroblast, Infernal Blast, Pyroblast. So when you throw your first pyro, what happens is it actually crits, giving you a heating up proc. Then when you combust, your combust will also crit, turning your heating up buff to an actual hot streak. Throw the second hot streak in and get another heating up proc, then Infernal Blast for your heating up to turn into another hot streak, giving you multiple Pyroblasts in the defreeze target. If you can do this fast enough with this shatter combo, you can actually get about 2 or 3 pyros inside the deep. So there's actually many different ways to set up in a defreeze with using spells like Palm and Ultra Time with Pyroblast procs. But since this is a beginner's guide, I'm just going to go over the basics, and I'll save that information for another future video. So the first build I'll be going over is my arena build, and in the arena build I like to take Presence of Mind. Palm is really good for instant CCs with Polymorph and Ring of Frost, along with controlled burst with pyros when needed. I like to get a hot streak proc, Palm, then Alter Time, instant shoot the healer, defreeze, throw pyros into the target, and if the healer trinkets a poly, Alter Time and re-palm shoot the healer, since you get 2 palms with Alter Time. Next up is Ice Barrier. Ice Barrier is really good for stopping huge bursts, unlike Flame Glow, but the only downside of this talent is that it's purgeable. So versus cleaves like Turbo Cleave or any really purgy comps, I'll probably be taking Flame Glow, but overall Ice Barrier is a really good defensive cooldown. Next up is Frost Jaw. Frost Jaw is really good and helps get shatter combos, which means more damage, and it can also be used as a blanket silence. I like to palm Frost Jaw and defreeze from range, almost like a Frost Mage, because normally for a Fire Mage, if you want to defreeze a target, you need to get close to them, then Nova them to defreeze them, but with the palm Frost Jaw setup, you can land kills much easier and instantly peel when needed. Next up is Cold Snap. Obviously this is a easy choice because Cold Snap gives you 2 blocks and also a 30% heal, instant heal, which is very good, and it saves my life a lot in arena, so I think it definitely beats the other 2 choices in that tier. For the bomb tier, in arenas I like to take Living Bomb. It does pretty good damage. Honestly, Nether Tempest probably does more damage, but the only problem I have with it in arenas is that it breaks polymorph. So when you're playing a comp that requires a lot of chain CC, like God comp or just a lot of comps out there that requires chain CC, what Nether Tempest does is, for example, if you put it on a DK and you polymorph the healer, the DK can easily just run to their healer and bounce Nether Tempest onto them, and it'll break the polymorph. So it can really mess you up, and I hate when that happens. Living Bomb can do that as well, but only on the last tick is when it explodes, so it's not as often. And not many people really notice that anyways, so yeah, Living Bomb is definitely the choice of bomb you'll take for arenas. Last but not least is Incanter's Ward. This gives you 30% increased spell damage for 15 seconds when they break the barrier, and it only absorbs 20k damage, so it's easily broken, but it's not really used for the absorption, it's mainly used for the spell damage increase. So if you can apply this buff while you're bursting, it can really help land a kill, because 30% spell power is pretty huge. And also for the glyphs, defreeze now, as many of you guys may know, lasts 5 seconds, but if you take the glyph it only lasts 4 seconds. But what it does is it takes a defreeze and makes it no longer on a global cooldown, so you can spam it while using other abilities. So this is really important, especially in high rated arena, because when you Frost Nova a target and you're trying to defreeze, good healers like Holy Patties will instantly free them out before you can even defreeze or just dispel themselves out of the Nova. So pretty much this glyph of defreeze is kind of needed at high MMR. Maybe not at lower MMR arenas, but at high MMR it's really important to get it off. Next up is Glyphic Polymorph, obviously because it takes off dots when you polymorph them, which allows poly to not break. This, goes along with the Nether Tempest Living Bomb rule that I was talking about earlier. And then last one is Glyph of Armors, and what that does is it increases the defensive effect of each armor by additional 10%. So pretty much when you're versing Cleaves and you have Molten Armor on, you'll be taking 10% less damage from physicals. So I mean, this is really huge. It's pretty much like having a lot more resilience. I used to use Glyph of Evo, but I mean, mostly in arenas you never really get a chance to heal with Evo, and you have a healer with you anyways, unless you're running like triple DPS. So for Fire Mages, the stat priority goes as follows. Obviously 6% hit chance so you don't miss your spells, Critical Strike, Haste, then Mastery. Crit is super important for a Fire Mage because, like I said earlier, to get your Hot Streak proc you have to crit, and all your burst damage comes from Hot Streak, so pretty much if you have no crit, that means no burst damage. Next up is Haste, because Haste actually lessens your global cooldown, allowing you to be able to react quicker to certain situations and makes your casting time a little faster. Mastery is last because Mastery increases your dot damage as a Fire Mage, and in Mists of Pandaria, healers can now dispel all dots with one single button, which completely counters Fire Mastery. So when it comes to playing Fire, you should have at least 15% crit minimum, so you can have 100% crit chance versus frozen targets. So like I said earlier, you need 25% if you do the math, but since your intellect buff gives you 5% and Molten Armor also gives 5%, 15% is the minimum requirement before you actually start playing Fire. Before you even touch it, you should have at least 15. So even after you hit the 15% threshold, you should still stack it as much as you can. So that way when you're actually forced to go Mage Armor when you're fighting certain comps and 3s, you're able to still crit most of the time. So as you can see, my crit chance right now is at 18.3. Later on in the season, I'll probably hit the 20% mark, which is definitely good. Right now I'm still in last season's gear. Since it's only the second week of season 13, I have about 3 tyrannical pieces. So like I said, 15% is the minimum requirement, and after that you are good to go. Alright, so for the gems as a Fire Mage, let's start with the meta gem. I use the Burning Primal Diamond, which gives 216 intellect and 3% critical effect. So as I said earlier, crit is very important, so this meta gem definitely helps your crit get up there to the certain threshold. For the red gem, I use 80 intellect and 160 PvP power. There's also one that gives you 80 intellect and 160 PvP resil, so if you feel really squishy and feel like you're dying really quickly, you should take the resil one instead. But for me, for my yellow gems, I use full resil gems, so I don't really need it. My resil right now is at 66%, so for me I feel like that's a comfortable zone for my resil. And also for my blue gems, I use half and half for PvP power and PvP resil, so try to balance it out a little. Resilience is actually definitely more important than PvP power, because although PvP power gives you more damage, resilience, if you live longer, you'll do more damage anyways, so that's my theory. Alright guys, so that concludes my Fire Mage PvP guide updated for patch 5.2. If this video helped you out whatsoever, please click that like button down below because it lets me know that I'm actually helping some of you out there. And if it gets a lot of likes, then I may continue these guides because I have a lot of tricks up my sleeve. I can do some RBG guides for you guys on how to maximize damage and be top damage in the charts as a Fire Mage. I can help you guys out in Arena since I'm pretty experienced now. So yeah, if you guys want more guides, more videos, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, leave a comment, and also make sure to subscribe to my channel to be updated and notified when I release these videos. And one more thing before you go, I have tons of Fire Mage gameplay, so learning is one thing, but if you want to visually see what I do in certain situations, I have tons of videos. Check out my channel, and once again, thanks for watching guys, and I'll catch you in the next video. Keep burning shit.
Yeah, the press got me.